Welcome, dear listener. You grew up believing the kids next door were heroes, wide-eyed rebels in tree houses, defying the tyranny of bedtimes and vegetables. Their laughter echoed like freedom. Their gadgets glittered with wonder. But that was the lie. The sweet, cartoon-colored bandage over a wound too deep to see. The truth was never about imagination. It was about indoctrination. Every mission, every gadget, every coded phrase was designed not to entertain, but to recruit. The rainbow world, you remember, was painted over blood and bone, and its slogans were commands whispered into malleable minds: loyalty, obedience, eternal childhood. In the concrete silence of the moon base, Leo polished his rifle with a precision born not from pride, but from fear. They called him Operative 6, the perfect soldier, obedient, relentless, incorruptible. He had earned every badge not through valor, but through the absence of hesitation. Beneath his uniform, his skin trembled from exhaustion. The smell of antiseptic burned his nostrils, bleeding into the tin tang of iron linings that sealed the base. He had forgotten his reflection long ago. Mirrors were forbidden. Mirrors, after all, revealed things that propaganda could not erase. He feared one thing above all: obsolescence. The older operatives whispered ghost stories about what happened after 13. Stories of disappearances dressed as promotions. They called it decommissioning, an honor, they insisted. Service completed. Duty fulfilled. But the silence that followed those names was too clean, too final. In his dreams, Leo sometimes heard their voices, strained and mechanical, calling his number from somewhere beneath the decks. He no longer slept much. When he did, he woke to the phantom vibration of scalpels humming against metal tables. Outside, the world was a perpetual twilight. The moon base hung in orbit over a fractured Earth, its continents a patchwork of burned-out suburbs and candy-colored propaganda posters peeling under acid rain. From the reinforced windows, the glow of Earth's surface shimmered faintly, as if the planet itself were breathing its last. The recycled air of the station carried the smell of sweat, dust, and hydraulic oil. The children who lived there called it home, though it felt more like a mausoleum with a heartbeat. Leo told himself this was the price of safety: safety from adults, safety from the infection of growing up. Then came the breach alert. Red lights pulsed down the sterile corridors like veins throbbing under skin. Operatives scrambled to stations, chanting battle codes drilled into them before they could tie their own shoes. Leo's file was pulled up for immediate deployment. Containment Sector C7, Moon Base, Lower Deck. But when he arrived, rifle ready, no enemy awaited. Only silence. Cold, surgical, suffocating. The doors had been sealed from inside. Through the observation glass, he saw the truth the organization was built upon. Rows of children strapped onto chrome tables, their faces frozen mid-scream as mechanical arms delved into their skulls. And among them, the flicker of life. A conscious child, mutilated, not erased. Leo hesitated, trembling, before reaching for the data chip labeled Cure Protocol. In that instant, the alarms went dead. A whisper crackled through his earpiece. "Welcome home, Operative 6. You've grown." The data chip felt hot in Leo's palm, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. The chamber around him was silent, except for the drip of condensation from frosted pipes. The smell of antiseptic barely covered the deeper stench: burnt hair, cauterized flesh, ozone. He stumbled backward, his breath sharp and metallic as the lights flickered overhead. He looked down again at the chip's label, Cure Protocol. It blinked once, then again, then went dark. The whisper in his ear repeated the phrase, softer this time. "You've grown." Leo pulled his weapon close, backing out of the containment bay, his mind already unraveling. He had seen too much. He had broken the commandment no operative was meant to even question. Never look behind the curtain. He made his way through corridors that suddenly felt too narrow, too loud. Every light buzzed with invasive static. Every vent hummed with an unseen voice. He pressed a hand to his chest, trying to steady his breathing. His reflection loomed on the metal wall, warped, almost alien. His face was his face? He touched his cheek as the image twitched. A trick of light or something worse? His throat ached with unfamiliar tightness, a lump of panic, or perhaps something deeper. He punched the wall. The image shattered into fragments. For a moment, the pieces moved on their own, lips whispering, "Groan." When he arrived at the dorm sector, his squad was already awake. Operative 2 was polishing a nail bat, humming an old campaign jingle. The others laughed over ration packs, but the laughter had no warmth. It was the sound of children pretending to remember joy. When Leo entered, silence spread like infection. His gloves were stained red, his pupils blown wide. Jay, his second, asked the quiet question no one wanted answered. "You saw it, didn't you?" Leo didn't reply. He handed the data chip to her, trembling slightly, and walked to the far wall. The silence thickened until someone finally exhaled. The briefing call came within the hour. Numb, automatic gestures guided his movements, voice patterns, retinal scans, authorization codes. Each routine step stripped Leo further from himself. The commander's distorted face filled the monitor. "Containment breach confirmed. You are cleared for recovery. Trust the system." The infection spreads through doubt. The transmission ended, leaving nothing but a high whine that drilled through his skull. Doubt. He wanted to believe the voice, but the memory of the operating tables burrowed in, feeding the thing growing inside him. He wasn't sure what was more terrifying, the truth he had seen, or his need to unsee it. During patrol, his ears began to ring again, louder now, synchronized with his pulse. His fingertips tingled. Each contact with cold metal burned as though the station itself rejected him. He reached for his radio. Feedback screamed. When the sound stopped, another voice broke through, faint but familiar. "You can't hide it forever." The hall's air temperature fluctuated violently, fogging his visor. For a moment, he saw the corridor breathe, the walls expanding and contracting. Something primal inside him whispered that the station wasn't alive. It was devouring. The lights dimmed to black. He raised his weapon and saw that his shadow was gone. The infection spread quietly in his nerves, unseen yet undeniable. Every sound, every reflection became a message. His wristband displayed erratic growth hormones far beyond normal levels. He deleted the data, terrified someone would notice. That night, he scrubbed his skin raw, breaking blisters where coarse hairs had begun to sprout. He cried silently, stripping his body of anything that marked transition. The faucet spat reddish water, smelling faintly sweet, like copper and rot. When he looked down, the water had stopped entirely. In the mirror above the sink, his eyes were leaking faint trails of black. Days blurred. Sleep no longer came. He sat with his squad, murmuring responses that didn't align with the questions. Jay grew wary. "You're changing," she said softly one morning as he adjusted his gloves. "You keep touching your throat." He lied, said it was a cold. She didn't believe him, though she didn't push. The surveillance drones hummed above them, their lenses recording every word, every gesture. It was then Leo realized the simplest horror of all. He didn't know whether he feared discovery more than transformation. An alert interrupted his exhaustion, a skirmish near the docking bay. Leo rallied his team. The enemy turned out to be a swarm of broken sentries, rogue automatons buzzing with erratic AI patterns. He fought with mechanical fury, each swing of his weapon landing too heavily. Sparks blinded him. When electricity danced along his blade, it crawled upward, fusing cables to his hand. The smell of burnt fabric filled the air. He screamed as the weapon melted into his skin, his veins glowing faintly where the circuits met flesh. When the battle ended, his right hand no longer felt human. Med Bay refused entry. Protocol stated that contamination from malfunctioning 204 technology was non-reversible. Jay tried to help, but commanding officers denied the request. They called his wound symbolic of loyalty, proof of permanent service. Leo lay awake that night under stuttering lights, watching his fused hand pulse faintly. Sometimes it twitched without consent, scratching against the sheets as though alive. Children whispered in nearby bunks, gossiping about operatives who became their own weapons. He wondered if they were talking about him or what was left of him. Whispers spread faster than commands. Files were sealed, his squad reassigned. Leo was flagged as in recovery. The term meant exile. He stayed in the lower maintenance sector, officially repairing old tech, unofficially quarantined. The machines there whispered back in their slow hums, repeating fragments of his name. He found comfort in their consistency. In the darkness, their shapes looked almost human. He began to talk to them, voice trembling. "You're not watching me," he said once. But the security lights blinked once in reply, as though laughing. Weeks passed before the knock came. Gentle, deliberate, wrong. The door slid open to reveal his commander, flanked by two operatives whose eyes looked hollowed out. The commander smiled, a fractured expression stitched together by duty. "You've done good work, Operative 6. Report for evaluation." Leo nodded, his heart pounding against the inside of his ribs. It wasn't a request. The two faceless soldiers followed close, silent shadows, with rifles lowered but ready. The walk to the evaluation chamber felt infinite. Metallic echoes trailed them like whispers of ghosts. Inside the chamber, the same chair from the containment bay waited. Wires coiled from the ceiling like predatory vines. Leo's shadow trembled on the floor. A nurse, wearing a cracked mask, stepped close. "It's routine," she murmured. "Just a scan." But her voice cracked mid-sentence, replaced by static. Her eyes rolled back as the surgeon behind her whispered, "It's already begun." Leo bolted, slamming his heel into one of the soldiers. The lights exploded into red seizure. The alarms didn't activate. Instead, his implanted radio streamed one calm phrase, "He's ripening, containment necessary." He escaped into the ventilation shafts, crawling through the metallic throat of the moon base. Every scrape of his knees echoed like thunder. Cool air burned through his lungs. Around him, systems awakened. Drones skittering, servos whining. He could hear them tracking his body heat. Ahead, faint light flickered through a grill. He peered down into a training bay where initiates were being taught to chant the oaths, "Serve, protect, never grow." Their voices blended into a choir of obedience. He covered his mouth to stop the sob from slipping out. It no longer sounded like children. By the time he reached the lower decks, he realized he no longer knew which side he was on. The infection, the indoctrination, both needed him compliant. He found an old workshop full of discarded weapons, their labels written in childish scrawl: gum blaster, cootie launcher, each one rusted through, reeking of ozone and faint rot. He sat alone, trembling, staring at his reflection in a cracked screen. The eyes, staring back, were not those of a boy. They were hollow, rimmed with gray. A small hairline crack crept along the monitor, bisecting his face cleanly in two. That night, the voices sang again through the pipes, but now they carried shape. Words emerged between the static. "Father waits." He felt warmth radiating through the floor panels. The station's hum deepened into something near human, a slow, deliberate breath. Leo gripped the gun with his fused hand, feeling its pulse sync with his own. A shape appeared at the far end of the hall, blacker than shadow, shifting in the flicker. It didn't move like a person. It glided, folding in and out of perception. He turned away, but the air suddenly smelled of burnt hair and tobacco. The first sight of Father broke the fragile reality Leo had left. The silhouette was a void shaped like a man, absorbing the light rather than blocking it. The air warped around him, shimmering with unbearable heat. As Leo backed away, the wall panels began to melt, plastic dripping like wax. Father's voice slithered from every speaker in the hall. "You hide from what you are, child." The tone was almost kind. "But growth is not infection. It is transformation." His words struck deep, terrifying because they almost sounded like mercy. Leo fled through maintenance corridors, hiding between pipes, steaming with chemical frost. His skin burned. The fused circuitry underneath his flesh sizzled, reacting violently to Father's presence. He pressed his face into the crook of his elbow, inhaling sweat and metal. Voices chased him, his own commanders ordering a decommissioning recovery operation. Father didn't need to kill him. The system was doing it instead. That realization split something open inside him. He had been fighting both sides of the same war. Hunger crept in. He hadn't eaten in days. In the storage room, among broken drones, he found ration paste. As he tore a package open, his stomach turned. Inside wasn't food, but a waxy gray lump pulsing faintly. It reeked of iron and something sweet. When he dropped it, it squealed softly. He recoiled. His mind collapsed inward with the understanding nothing on this base had been manufactured. Everything was repurposed, including them. He discovered the cryolabs by accident. Frost-covered pods lined the walls, their glass opaque from condensation. He wiped one clean. Inside lay a child, no older than 9, chest rising and falling in artificial rhythm, eyes half open, staring at nothing. The tag read, Operative 4. Beneath the label, a second line, Harvested. Leo staggered backward, bile rising in his throat. He punched the control panel until his knuckles split, the fused wires in his hand sparking wildly. Somewhere deep in the walls, something began to wake. His body betrayed him again. This time, the change was unmistakable. His voice cracked, low and broken. No amount of denial could hide it now. He clawed at his throat until blood streaked his collar. He found scissors and tried to cut the emerging stubble, pressing too hard until the skin separated. The pain was exquisite, grounding him briefly before horror returned. "It's inside you," whispered the reflection from a nearby panel. His eyes flared black for a second. Then came the command over the loudspeaker. Operative 6 is compromised. Neutralize on sight. The treehouse, once his sanctuary, became his prison. Automated defenses activated, gun turrets, collapsing stairways, flame traps meant for adult containment. Vinyl banners that once read "Freedom" now hung like shrouds. His former allies flooded in, eyes cold. Children with cracked helmets, syringe guns shaking in their tiny hands. Leo backed against the wall as Jay appeared at their center, her expression twisted between pity and duty. "It found you," she said. Her weapon trembled. "Don't make me do this." He saw the fear in her face, that she wouldn't kill him fast enough. He found the cure in the chaos. Inside a surviving lab module, among shattered test tubes and blood-colored vats, a tablet displayed a sequence: pituitary extraction, hormonal reversal, age stasis protocol. The solution rose in his throat like bile. To stay a child forever, another must die. He looked at the vats again and saw the floating forms. Children half-grown, suspended mid-life. Something deep inside him screamed to destroy it all, but something darker whispered back, "Survive." The whisper sounded like father. Night on the moon base wasn't real. It was orchestrated lighting, programmed calm. But as darkness fell, evacuation sirens coincided with whispers through every comm channel. "Room 0, they said. "He waits in room 0. Trembling, Leo followed the signal, his bare feet painting blood where the fused metal tore at his flesh. Every step echoed with the rhythm of a heartbeat not his own. The door to room 0 was warm to the touch. Inside waited the delightful children, merged, malformed, too symmetrical to be natural. They surrounded him, smiling in perfect unison, skin sewn together with threads of circuitry, eyes glowing faintly blue, their voices layered into one harmonious, nauseating tone. "Join us. We're safe here. Forever young." Leo screamed, firing wildly, but bullets sank into their gelatinous forms. They laughed in chorus, stepping closer. "Growing hurts," they sang, "but Father loves us anyway." Their faces shifted, merging into a single pale mask. A child's visage stretched too thin across an adult's skull. Leo dropped his weapon, the fused hand twitching uncontrollably. Cornered, his back against the steel wall, he understood at last. The infection, the aging, was not sickness, but proof of will. The system wanted sterile obedience, voices that never deepened, minds that never questioned. Growing up was rebellion. He tore wires from the machines, slamming them into his body, screaming through the current. Flesh charred, circuits burned. He used the weapons the system built to mutilate the parts of him that matured. His jaw trembled, his eyes bled, but he stayed standing. The delightful children backed away, their harmony breaking. "Abomination!" one hissed. He staggered toward the blast door leading to Father's mansion. The floor beneath him pulsed with every heartbeat of the moonbase, like the veins of some colossal organism. Behind him, alarms blared again, this time not warning of infection, but of awakening. Father's presence intensified. Heat rolled through the corridors, warping air. Leo's remaining skin blistered. He tightened his grip on the gun-fused hand. "No more lies," he whispered, voice low and cracked. "No more children." Then he stepped into the final corridor, swallowed by light. "By now you understand that there are no heroes here, only children trained to wear the mask of valor until it fuses to their flesh. The final act begins where all indoctrination ends, with the illusion of choice." Leo stands before Father's mansion, a labyrinth of glass and steel veins pulsing with molten light. The air ripples, dense with static and dust that glows like dying stars. The walls exhale heat. The floors hum with latent energy synchronized with his racing pulse. His feet leave bloody prints on the tiles, evaporating seconds after contact. The doors hiss open, not with hydraulics, but in response to his approach, alive, welcoming. Inside, the smell of burnt sugar and tobacco fills his lungs. The room breathes his name before its occupant does. Father waited by the furnace, his shape for once still and defined. The void around him thickened, cutting Leo's retinas with the absence of light. Molten pipes coiled through the walls, their liquid steel lighting the space like veins beneath translucent skin. The heat warped every sound. When Father spoke, his voice crawled under Leo's scalp. "You can end the pain," he said. "Kill the lie that made you my child." His tone was disturbingly gentle. Leo raised the weapon fused into his arm. Sparks danced across his knuckles. "I'm not your child." But even he heard the doubt in his reply. The first blow came not from his hand, but the room itself. Gravity shifted as machinery in the floor came alive, retracting panels to reveal immense conduits. Energy surged upward, throwing Leo backward. He slammed into a steel beam. The air left his lungs in one long groan. Father didn't move. He only tilted his head, whispering through the heat waves. "You destroy what you fear, but you always rebuild it." Leo dragged himself up, every movement releasing the smell of burned fabric and flesh. The weapon hand twitched, reacting on its own, the circuitry recognizing its maker. He fired. The shot tore through the air, molten glass bursting behind Father. For a second, Leo thought he had missed entirely. Then came the scream, not from Father, but from the walls themselves. The mansion convulsed, ejecting arcs of electricity. Father's silhouette fragmented, folding into the molten pipes before reassembling behind him. The shadow's fingers brushed Leo's shoulder. There was no heat, only pain, pure and clean and absolute. "You see," Father murmured, his breath scalding, "you cannot destroy your design. You are its echo." Leo staggered forward, grabbing a loose cable. He slammed it into his stomach, letting the raw current rush through him. Circuits glowed blue across his chest. Pain, collapsed memory, faces of children, of laughter, long dead. He remembered training songs, mission oaths, the promise of eternal youth. It all bled into static. For a moment, he laughed. The sound startled even him. "If we are echoes, Father," he said through clenched teeth, "then hear this one last time." He pulled the wire free, flinging it toward the furnace core. A gush of plasma erupted. The explosion broke the silence of the moon base. Pressure collapsed corridors. Alarms howled across the vacuum. The mansion shook violently. Father reeled but did not fall. His shadow stretched upward, consuming the fire like a lung inhaling smoke. Leo lunged, pounding his fused fist into that darkness. With each strike, fragments of his weapon hand split off, embedding into the floor like shrapnel. His screams mixed with metal shrieks. The room dissolved into unbearable white. When sight returned, Leo stood where Father had been, surrounded by ash. But Father's whisper still lingered. "Even fire casts a shadow." Leo collapsed on one knee, his skin breaking into scales of cracked silicon and blood. The weapon fused to his limb had shut down, cold now, part of him forever. He crawled toward the furnace opening, the only light left in the room. Its glow now seemed smaller, weaker, like a dying heart. He reached for it, hoping warmth might anchor him to anything human. But the moment his palm met the steel edge, he saw his reflection again, older, acne-scarred, gaunt, unmistakably adolescent. His pulse slowed. Something in him finally gave way. The K&D extraction squad breached the chamber minutes later. Their helmets glimmered beneath the emergency lighting. One soldier paused when she saw him. "Operative 6?" she whispered, as if saying it too loud might change what she saw. But the others had no such hesitation. "Adolescent detected," one barked, activating a restraint. Leo lifted his head, blood trickling from his ears. "I destroyed him," he muttered. "I destroyed Father." The commander shook her head. "No," she said softly. You replaced him! They dragged him across molten floors, his body leaving smears that hissed on contact. Around them, the mansion began collapsing inward, swallowing itself in silence. The extraction transport loomed outside the window, cold and pristine. Leo blinked at its brightness. It hurt his eyes. As they carried him aboard, his gaze caught one final glimpse of Earth below, vast and blue, but flickering, like a dying monitor. The world looked almost peaceful from here, almost detached. The restraints hissed around his wrists, merging with the metal now embedded in his arm. Back aboard the moon base, Leo was processed without ceremony. Sterile fluorescence cut across the lines of motionless operatives in white uniforms. His file appeared on the observation screen. K&D Operative 6, contaminated to be decommissioned. The medic beside him read the sentence aloud as if reciting a prayer. He didn't resist, didn't argue. They wheeled him through glass corridors, the hum of machinery growing louder. For the first time, he noticed how each footstep timed perfectly with that rhythm. No irregularity, no variation. Consistency was faith here. Consistency was control. The decommissioning chamber loomed ahead. He had seen it before, but never from this side. Chrome curved gracefully into a chair shaped for restraint. The scent was unmistakable, antiseptic, mixed with something warmer, like scorched sugar. A child's scent, clinging even after the burn. Leo's breath trembled as he was strapped down. Overhead, the drill arm moved into position, its serrated edge glinting beneath the red light. A mechanical voice began to count backward from 10. Time became elastic, bending outward as each number echoed down. When 5 came, the lights dimmed. A projection flickered over the steel wall, a smiling group portrait. The K&D operatives, laughing beside colorful weaponry, all eyes gleaming with impossible innocence. The image flickered, the children's smiles distorted, their laughter replaced by silent screams. Leo turned his head, trying to look away, but restraints held him firm. He felt heat rising behind his eyes, a burning that wasn't fear anymore. It was fury, fury at everything they had made him. The drill's whine drowned his thoughts. The drill never reached him. Before it did, the entire moon base shuddered violently. Power surged through the walls, activating hidden systems. Screens across the chamber lit up, cycling through old propaganda footage, handshakes, coded slogans, indoctrination reels. One screen froze on Leo's face, his child's face, 10 years old, chanting oaths of loyalty. Then static. Then Father's voice, low and calm, playing through the speakers. My work is eternal. The drill slowed to a stop. The red lights blinked out. Silence filled the void like ash settling after fire. Nurses whispered emergency codes, but their voices melted into one. The walls flickered again. Father's silhouette appeared faintly where Leo's own should have been. His outline pulsed like heat haze. The air smelled faintly of electricity and burnt skin, even though nothing burned. Then came a soft, rhythmic sound, tapping, from inside the metal shell of the chair. It matched Leo's pulse. A nurse leaned in, unsure. Sir, his vitals are irregular, she said. The commander frowned. They always are before perfection. Hours passed. Or maybe only moments. Time folded, seamless. Leo drifted through the hum of machinery and the sensation of being scraped from the edges inward. He wondered briefly whether this was what being erased felt like. Not dying, but being overwritten. His mind tried to recall something, anything, soft. The taste of sugar cereal, the sound of laughter, a warm hand on his shoulder that wasn't holding him down. For a moment, he could almost find it, but when he did, it was gone again, like a fragment of static too short to capture. The operation completed. The chamber opened with ceremonial silence. The room smelled of metal and ozone. Monitors displayed a clean record. Subject stabilized. Non-compliant memory sectors removed. The nurses withdrew, whispering scripture-like phrases of success. Leo blinked once. Then again, his eyes adjusted slowly, focus sharpening on the world before him. The pupils no longer trembled. They reflected the light exactly as the glass walls did. Flat, perfect, obedient. The commander approached. "Do you remember who you are?" she asked softly. Leo turned his head, the motion smooth, mechanical. His lips parted. "Yes," he said. The voice was lower now, colder. "I am Operative 6. The commander smiled faintly. "Welcome back, soldier." She turned away, tapping authorization codes into her data pad. Behind her, the figure remained seated for a moment longer, pupils tracking her movement with faint delay. As the door slid shut, Leo raised his remaining hand, palm up. The skin gleamed faintly, circuits still visible beneath the new synthetic layer. He stared at it, at the faint pulse of power underneath. Deep in the moon base's infrastructure, one by one, old lights began flickering back to life. Cameras tilted on their own. Systems hummed without instruction. Somewhere in the ventilation network, a breeze whispered across the pipes, soft, rhythmic, like a child's laugh replaying through static. "Sir?" a technician called from the observation room. "Power grid anomaly. Sector C7 showing unlisted activity." The commander frowned, moving closer to the screen. Through the static, a single message pulsed faintly across the feed. "Operation F6 initiated." She froze. The technician turned, uneasy. "Is that him?" The commander didn't answer. On the monitor, something moved, a ripple of shadow spreading through the power veins. A black silhouette flickered once across the glass. For one last moment, the station fell silent, and in that silence, a voice, calm, familiar, half ray of memory, half nightmare, whispered through every comm device. "Stand by, children. Phase 2 commences." The lights dimmed to red. Somewhere deep in the power core, a heartbeat began to echo, mechanical, yet unmistakably alive. The moon base breathed. Its metallic walls shivered. Leo, or what remained of him, opened his eyes fully. "Now you know. The war never ended, because childhood never died. It was harvested, refined, weaponized, and reborn. The cycle continues. Every bedtime, a command. Every dream, a mission. When you look out tonight and see the moon glowing too bright, listen closely. You might hear a whisper, faint but certain, buried beneath the static of your own thoughts. Grow up, it says. I dare you. Then the signal cuts, leaving only silence and the faint, rhythmic thrum of something still watching.